Hello boomers, it's Paul here, and today's video is going to be on remote access, computer remote access, and remote desktop. A lot of the boomers I've encountered recently have been asking me about phone calls they've been receiving, telling them they've got viruses or that their bank needs access to the computer, or some such phone call or text message or even an email requesting remote access to your computer. The first thing I tell them is don't respond to it. That's the primary form of spam or fraud that can be conducted upon you, is to give access to somebody outside of your home or your immediate family access to the computer. Now, having said that, there may be an occasion where you do need somebody to take a look at some application or some sort of Windows issue, and you've initiated the connection, the contact. You've called Microsoft, you've called Intuit about an accounting software package, or you've called some third-party vendor like antivirus program provider because something on your computer is not behaving, and you've maybe isolated it down to something that is in one of those applications. So you're calling the main vendor, so you've initiated the call. At that point they may request access to your computer. Now typically they would ask you to bring up a browser and put in a URL in the address bar, or some sort of web page, and then they'll give you a code to put in, and that gives them access to the computer. If they don't do that and they ask to use the built-in product of Windows Remote Access, then we're going to be going a different path. So I'll take you down some steps you'll need to consider if you're going to let somebody have remote assistance access. So typically you'd need to check a couple of things. One, that it's turned on. Now if you go to the computer icon, this is Windows 7, but it'd be similar for later versions, and you right click on it and drop down to the properties. Oops, that went off screen, but we'll bring it on. You now have a control panel or control panel items system menu come up. Now you can go to advanced system settings, but the quicker way to get there would be remote settings. It pulls the tab up immediately, and you just need to check that it is turned on. There you go. That's basically it. Now if you look at the lower portion, it's talking about remote desktop. Now that's actually should be disconnected from this first one. I don't think you need to turn anything on here. If it's set to don't allow connections to this computer, that's fine. If you are in the habit of allowing people onto your computer, or you want to set it up so that you can get access to your computer remotely from another workstation on your home network or office network, then you may want to check the middle icon here. But in the actual remote assistance option is up here, and that needs to be turned on. And you just say OK on that. Now to get access to that, or give access to that, you need to initiate from your end a request. So here we would I can type in Windows Remote Assistance, and it should come up. Yeah, there we go. Windows Remote Assistance is in the programs list. Now if you don't want to start typing, then we can always just go back to the programs menu, and we scroll down to the folder that's marked maintenance, and down the bottom of that list here, Windows Remote Assistance. So at this point you can invite someone you trust to help you, and that word in there, trust, is in there for a reason. And if it's the other way around, help someone who has invited you. But typically you would invite someone you trust to help you, and you click on that, and the second box comes up that says save this invitation as a file, use email to send an invitation, or use Easy Connect. It's simplest to use the email to send an invitation. I would recommend that over anything else because you know exactly where it's going to. So I've just initiated that. I have a mail program set up on here. Oops, it went off screen. Let's drag it on. And this is typically what you'd pull up and you put in here the name of your recipient. And then you just click send. What it includes is this invitation here, and the person who receives this should be able to click on this invitation attachment, and that will provide them with access to your computer. Now it is, I believe, time dependent, so it would have to happen fairly promptly, and of course you would set this up perhaps by phone or even by email, but the person at the other end would be expecting it and know to act on it promptly, and you'd be sitting at your computer at this end in order to I'm not going to send that off, in order to make sure that everything goes smoothly at this end. That's typically how you set up and execute remote assistance. Remote desktop is a little different, and you typically start the program up by going to All Programs, Accessories, and drop down and you should see Remote Desktop Connection. If you click on that, this little box comes up here, and this is where it gets a little bit odd because they don't configure this box the same as you expect most Windows to be configured. If you have more than one computer in the office and you've turned on the remote access option as shown earlier, you now have access to that computer via this program. It says remote desktop connection, but in fact it's just an application in Windows that's built in and is actually very, very powerful. I'd recommend caution using it, but it is kind of nice if you've got, say, two computers, one on the first or second floor of your home and one in the basement, and you are now sitting at the one in the basement and you want to get access to the one upstairs. If it's turned on and sitting there doing nothing, you can remote access. So you typically need to know the name of the computer, and to do that you'd go into Computer, right click, and Properties, and you can then see that your mine's here is called Vostro 200, and you type in whatever the name of your computer is, and so it'll be my computer upstairs, and you can say connect. Now it's best to know a little bit more about what's going on other than just trying to connect to that computer. When you connect, you're going to be using the options below here. You'll have a display, local resources, programs, experience, and advanced. You don't need to know much about local resources and experience and programs, but typically you'd want the display as full screen or as large as you can make it. If it's a more recent version of Windows, you may want to use all the windows or the screens that you've got, all the monitors, and you may want to check that if you want to use more than one. I typically don't, because I'd like to still see some of my home screen that I'm working on, even if I'm working on a remote session. Again, if you've got a fairly fast network, you can choose the level of resolution. I would just leave it at the defaults. Local resources means that you can start sharing some things like the printers and clipboard, and if you click more you can even go down and share your local drive or your data drive, whatever disk drives you've got, and that allows you to transfer files between one and the other through the remote connection. I'm going to cancel out of that. Programs I wouldn't worry about right now. Experience, this will be dependent upon the speed. I would leave it at the defaults. I wouldn't change it, but typically the experience is dependent somewhat on the speed here, and the advanced tab, I wouldn't worry about that either. But the display is the main one. I would pull it up as a full screen rather than just a window, and it allows you to save credentials. So once you put in the username, and that's the username on the other computer, so if you've set up one or two accounts on there, you might want to put that in, and it will prompt you for a password once it logs on. So if you say allow me to save the credentials, it will then prompt you to save those details. You can save this as a desktop icon. I can say save as, and then I'd say on my desktop I want you to create my computer, icon. It's probably going to put it on the wrong screen here, but we'll see. Nope, there it is. It put it right there. And that means every time you double click on it on your desktop, it will take you straight to this little startup screen, or even try and log you straight in if you've already saved the credentials. And when you actually try and get to another computer, it will try and pull up as a full screen, and it will be just like you're sitting in front of it. Okay, let's do a remote desktop example. Remote desktop connection, show options, display size full. I've already set up the destination computer, connect. For the purposes of this video, I've set up a test situation, so this is going straight into a computer where I've got an account already open and active. I've taken over that session. Now, as you see, it's a full screen, and I've got this bar at the top which slides backwards and forwards, so you can move it out of the way of anything that's behind it. You can see some information here, like connection information. It'll tell you it's good or bad. Some security information, and some options to control the computer from this mini menu up here. It's kind of useful when you're on something like a Windows 10 format. Now, the little pin here, if you unpin it and go off and do something else, it will remove this bar here. So if I go down here and say just dawdle for a while, yeah, there it goes. It's disappeared. Now I have to get it back. I have to go straight to the top with the cursor and it'll come back, and then I can pin it back on here. I recommend you keep it here because you could lose track of where you are on which computer. This one is at least telling me I'm on server 1, something that I've set up for this video. I typically X out of it because if I close it, if I log off, it will literally log me off that remote computer, and whatever applications I'm executing will be stopped. So I tend to just X out of the sessions, and that will leave the account running on the other computer. And there we go, it's gone. Now you can go back in again with different formats, show options. I can display at a smaller size here, and it will just open it up as a window on the screen rather than the full scope of the monitor. As I said in the earlier part of this video, we can set up some audio settings. You can capture the audio on the other computer and have it come to this computer. You can have it recognize printers and use the clipboard, and as I said, you can bring in access to the local drive so that you can see certain files on your local machine that you can then actually drag and drop to through the connection to the other computer. So that's pretty much everything you need to know to get started on remote desktop connecting in your home. I certainly recommend it. But thanks for watching. I appreciate you taking the time to look at this video, and please like, subscribe, and comment.